Breaking news from Capitol Hill tonight, where the House of Representatives is expected imminently to vote on an amendment to the defense authorization bill that would repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, pending Pentagon review. The vote provoked some strong words on the floor tonight.
Don't ask, don't tell. What does it mean? It didn't make sense then, and it doesn't make sense now. Just like the military helped end segregation based on race, we should have put an end to Don't Ask, Don't Tell long ago. It is an affront to human dignity and to the dignity and the worth of every man and woman serving in our military. We cannot wait. We cannot be patient. We must end discrimination in the military, and we must end it now. Discrimination is wrong, and we must end it and end it.
Today, by repealing the discriminatory Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, we also honor the service and sacrifice of all who dedicated their lives to protecting the American people. We honor the values of our nation, and we close the door on fundamental unfairness. I urge my colleagues to vote for the repeal of this discriminatory policy of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and make America more American.
The amendment would kick in after the Pentagon study on how to repeal policies released on December 1st. Essentially, the amendment makes repeal contingent on that Pentagon review that's due in December. It's also contingent on certification by the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell would not harm military readiness. Now, this vote in the House comes just hours after the Senate Armed Services Committee voted 16-12 to also repeal the policy legislatively contingent on Pentagon review and certification. Now, all the Republicans on the Senate committee, except for Senator Susan Collins of Maine, voted to keep the policy in place. All the Democrats on the Senate Armed Services Committee, except for Senator Jim Webb of Virginia, voted that the policy should be repealed. Again, pending Pentagon review. Once again, the House is expected to vote any minute now on an amendment to repeal the 17-year-old Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy that bans gays and lesbians from serving openly in the United States military. Joining us now are NBC congressional producers Ken Strickland and Shauna Thomas, both of whom have great jobs and both of whom I kind of idolize. Ken and Shauna, thank you both for your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Shauna, what's going on in the House right now? What do you expect in terms of the timing on the Don't Ask, Don't Tell amendment?
Well, right now they are in a series of votes that are multiple amendments to the defense authorization bill. The Don't Ask, Don't Tell amendment is fifth in the series. The bell's ringing means they're on the second one. So we could have another 30 minutes until we actually get to that bill, to that amendment.
And in terms of the, I guess in terms of either of you, with your reporting on the Hill today, are either of you able to report anything about the numbers, about the likelihood of a repeal, that repeal amendment passing? When Speaker Pelosi was speaking there, it sounded like it was essentially done, that it was going to pass.
You know, I've talked to multiple Congress people, and it's a done deal on the House side. This amendment's going to pass tonight. The defense authorization bill as a whole tomorrow may be something different, but the amendment's going to pass tonight.
Ken, let me ask you the significance of the vote in the Senate Armed Services Committee today. That passed. The vote was 16-12. Will that amendment survive? Again, that's just a committee vote, not the full Senate voting on it.
Sure. Here's the way the Senate works, and you know the rules around here. If we learned anything from healthcare, we know that the rules around here are very complicated. But for the people who support the repeal of this ban, this vote today was significant, and here's why. Once you get an amendment placed in the bill before it goes to the floor and faces the full Senate, it's a lot harder to take that measure out of the bill. So people who oppose this measure to repeal the ban will then basically be forced to try to kill the entire bill. The defense authorization bill has a lot of goodies in it for a lot of people. Most importantly, it has a pay increase for people in the military. It also has things for all the future weapon systems, planes, trains, automobiles, boats, ships, fighters. It's all in there. So it's really hard to not pass this bill. In most cases, the defense authorization bill always passes. Not every time, but in most cases. So at the end of the day, people are going to have to decide, is it a vote for the military or is it a vote against the military? Do they want to block this for one single issue? It remains to be seen.
Is there anything else more controversial than usual about this particular defense authorization bill other than Don't Ask, Don't Tell, or is this a fairly standard authorization bill?
Donna, or?
I think it's a fairly standard authorization bill. One of the other amendments being voted on right now has to do with an engine that there's been a little controversy about that the Secretary of Defense says he doesn't want the money for. Other groups have said they don't want the money for, but there are certain Congress people who have those companies in their district that do want the money. So there are a couple of other things, but this seems to be what people are focusing on.
And if I could say something about the Senate side, the bill has yet to go before the full Senate. It has yet to go to the floor. So that means more amendments can be added. In some cases, this is a very local bill, depending on what type of senator you are, where you're from. There could be something in there for building of ships in your state. Whether or not that's in there can determine your support. So on the Senate side, it remains to be seen if there will be another amendment that's offered that could be a poison pill or something that could secure votes. Again, in the Senate, Democrats and their supporters of the repeal of the ban would need at least one Republican. And remember, it always takes 60 in the Senate to pass anything controversial. They're going to be looking for at least one Republican to join them to pass this bill.
NBC News congressional producers Ken Strickland and Shauna Thomas. I know you guys much prefer being behind the scenes, feeding us information rather than being on camera. So thank you for breaking your rule. It's great to have you both on the show.
Thanks,
Rachel.
All right. We will be keeping an eye on what's going on in the House tonight to let you know when and if the final amendment comes up. We're looking for a final tally on the House amendment on repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell contingent on Pentagon review. That is all happening right now. They've been going through this process throughout the night, including a voice vote earlier and then a recorded vote later. We're keeping an eye on it. Geek Week still to come. I get a chance to construction geek out and to security geek out at a place where it is amazing the country doesn't know much about what's going on, given that it is a site of national symbolic and historic significance. Much geekery all coming up.